Welcome, everyone, to First Class Fantasy. I'm Theo Gremminger, and I'm missing Billy Muzio today. Billy's on a much-needed vacation, but I have two really great guests today. I have Nando Fino, and I have Chris Vaccaro. If you're a high-stakes player like myself, if you play high-stakes NFFC, FFPC, FFWC, Nando and Chris's podcast the last few seasons has been weekly must-listen. I know it is for me. I know it is for not a lot of people. I think these two guys are always really, really good together. There's a lot of ball busting, but a lot of great information that comes out. This has been a long time coming, Nando, for you podcasting with me. I know last year you had fatherly responsibilities. This year it's eased up a little bit. How are you doing today?
Everything's great, man. I'm just very happy to be here.
Thanks absolutely. No, I'm stoked. I'm definitely stoked. And Chris, we've podcasted together probably a dozen times at this point. I think last time we got after it, it was me, you, and Nelson Sousa, maybe, or it was you with the GOAT District. I can't even remember. It's been so many times. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Theo, and shout out to Nando for blessing us with his presence and making the time for us today. That was really sweet of him.
It's a much more balanced video when we're three-headed here. I think it's a lot better. So I really do appreciate that, Nando. We're gonna talk a lot today, guys. Have you guys started?
It's not just an hour of Vaccaro's ceiling and then his head all the way down to the bottom.
It's definitely gonna be Chris focused, but we're gonna get a lot of Nando. You ran pure last year, so Chris can talk all he wants, but you had a number of hits. Like True. Nando's dumpster dives really hit last year. I think you gave the world Curtis Samuel. They'd given up on him, and I think you hyped him up. I think Geno Smith you were on last year, so I'll give you some props. We're gonna definitely talk about that. But guys, we're some people are waiting to draft till August, but in the high stakes streets, guys are really getting after it. There's probably I know I'm in a FFPC main event right now, a slow draft, and I know people are drafting underdogs nonstop. NFFC, people are drafting every single night these days. This is like 4th of July comes, and it's like people wake up. This is the time to make some money. This is time to get some builds in. How big is it right now? I mean, Nando, you've been doing this a long time. Is this the biggest you've seen fantasy?
Yeah, I think so. And I think just an underdog, right? For instance, I've heard more people talking about underdog and new people, like people who don't talk about like their fantasy teams than ever before. And I don't want to single out just underdogs. There's some, but it just keeps growing and growing. I think because people see how easy it is, and then they're picking up second and third teams, and it's cool to talk about it now too. So yeah, it's pervasive at the moment.
Best ball has definitely never been bigger. I'll give you that. It's like DFS had its thing, and now Chris, best ball is kind of taking over. And Nando, you're spot on, man. We had Hayden Winks on First Class Fantasy last week, who does tremendous underdog content. And it's kind of like the word Google. It's like when we say we're going to Google something, it's like we're going to look it up. It's become part of the vernacular for everybody. And now it's like the underdog. It's like underdogs kind of replaced best ball. But Chris, you've been playing best ball forever. But how big is it now?
Yeah, Theo, the industry's as big as it's ever been. There's more content everywhere you look. Twitter, any social media outlet. There's so many more analysts trying to get into the game, establishing themselves. You can't go on Twitter without seeing scrolls of just content. Now, best ball is, you hear it day in and day out. Everybody's in their best ball tournaments. Like Nando said, underdog is taken over. That's early in June into July. You keep hearing about it. Online championship season in the NFFC and FFPC is blowing up. You see the draft boards on a nightly basis, and now we hear Scott's Fishbowl is up and running as well. So there's always something to talk about in this industry. And like you said, July 4th comes and it just blows up even more. And we're well on our road to the main events in late August and early September.
And Chris, you hear the ice cream truck, right?
I did hear that. It
had to be the neighborhood ice cream truck.
This happens on a week. Wait, so Theo, this used to happen every week during the season. Our show was pretty much timed perfectly with my landscaper that would come, and I would just hear the maid would always hear the landscaper.
The butler would leave, and his landscapers would show up.
Listen, Theo, we're already off and running with this guy. Don't let him distract you like he tries to distract me during our show.
No, I love it, guys. I think that's part of the appeal of you guys podcasting together is you get a lot of great information, but you get an awesome rapport. And we're actually going to take a little quick break We're going to hear from Underdog, actually. And then when we get back, we're going to talk about the Saquon Barkley situation, because I don't know about you guys, but it's got me a little bit shook. And I know we're all New York area guys here, and this could be like a depressing time for Giants fans, around the corner. So stick with us. We'll be back in a few.
Hey, people always ask me, what's the World Series of Fantasy? What's the Super Bowl of Fantasy? And it's easy. It's the FFPC. Their signature Players Championship has a $6 million prize pool, and their best ball leagues start in February. And they're the answer to so many questions. Hey, what's the best place to get a Dynasty Orphan? Well, you can adopt a Dynasty Orphan at the FFPC right now. There's more orphans at the FFPC than anywhere else on the internet. That's why we partner with them. So if you want to play fantasy football for low, medium, high stakes, you love Dynasty, you love best ball, you love seasonal leagues, all types of fantasy footballers need to go to the FFPC. And remember, use promo code Underworld. Promo code Underworld gets you $25 off your first team. Promo code Underworld, $25 off your first team, no matter what the format is, at the FFPC. Go get it.
Welcome back, everyone, to First Class Fantasy. And the FFPC, Chris, I know you're mostly in the NFFC streets right now, but a question for both of you guys: do you always use the same team name? Because I'm seeing a lot of people going incognito these days with these fake me out team names. I'm almost always Gremminger. I put my last name out there. I'm not hiding from anybody, but I think I know a couple FFPC players who are high volume guys, and they'll do literally a dot. They'll do the period, so and you have to go on the owners to see who it is. How about you, Chris? Are you always the same team name?
Theo, I've been team the GST for about 15 years now, so I never changed once, and I don't intend to switch it up.
How about you, Nando?
I'm boring. I'm like team Nando everywhere I go. If it defaults to Fino on NFFC, then whatever. I don't get too creative.
Stands out, Team Nando. Everybody knows that.
I respect you guys for doing that. I think it's the way to do it. And to the high volume players out there, it doesn't matter what your team name is. They're going to draft enough. Everybody's going to know the guys you're on. And I always joke with Chris. I always say, before August 1st comes around, you can actually tell the truth because ADP is so changing. So right now, the guys you're on, your little secret 6th round pick guys, he's riding in the 5th round anyway. By the time we get around. I just know it's funny because I'm in this FFPC main event slow draft. It's my first one of the year. And I get a DM from Matt Modica, a great NFFC player who's in the draft. And he's got a team name I've never seen him with. And he's like, hey, like your build. I went with Saquon and Breece Hall. And I'm like, Matt, I didn't know you were in this.
Matty Mo's going incognito.
So I think it's an interesting phenomenon with the incognito names. But guys, I want to talk up first because we're all living in the New York City area. And shout out to Chris. You can go talk football with him anytime you want at the Grahamercy Street Tavern. Why don't you give a shout out to your place, Chris? It's a really, really fun bar.
Oh, Theo, no, man.
It's the Greenwich Street Tavern, Theo. Come on now.
Sorry. I apologize.
Come on now. You just plugged another place.
I apologize. I pumped an entire different tavern.
Yeah, I just got a text that says, "Can you believe this guy?"
Yeah, exactly. That did not. Theo, look, my hands. No phone in them. Anyway, Greenwich Street Tavern. Yeah, our 18th season. Their 18th year in business down in Tribeca. Pretty soon, next month, Theo, we'll have you and the rest of the high stakes guys in town for our big New York draft weekend. And it's always a perfect start to kick off draft weekend where we all get together and have some drinks and try and pump each other for information on who they're going to draft the next couple of days. So looking forward to that.
I can't wait to see if there's going to be a cake for Billy Wazowski or will Nelson Sousa be drafting at the time we're all talking and hanging out.
Chances are Nelson will be drafting while we're all hanging out. Yeah.
So Nando, we'll start out with you on this one. Saquon Barkley is getting deeper and deeper into contract negotiations, and there's literally nothing happening. The word stalemate is being used. There's some reports saying that they're off by 3 million, and Saquon's side doesn't seem to be budging. How worried should people be if they've already drafted Saquon? Should people be adjusting their plans with Saquon, or is this potentially like a discount time for drafters and you think it'll all get done?
I think it's a discount time. My gut just goes to discount, but then like there's always like that little Le'Veon Bell back here on my shoulder, and all it takes is someone else to be like, that dude took a year off, got paid, had fresh legs at least for a year, and then went into oblivion. But I don't know, man. I guess you could also say like maybe owners made a mistake and learned from that side too, but I don't think he's going to hold out like for the entire season or even into the season. I think he'll come back. He'll be ready. That's an exciting team that has playoff aspirations. I'm sure people are on him pretty hard and be like, dude, it's 3 million, so I'm sure someone's talking to the Giants and be like, dude, it's 3 million. Get your running back out here, please. Or we're going to be stuck with Matt Breida, which isn't the worst thing. It's not the worst thing, but I mean, it's not Saquon.
He's a Breida guy, Theo. He's a Breida guy. So, I mean,
everyone should be.
Yeah. Theo,
the first question.
They offered 13 million to Saquon, but the problem is he wants more guaranteed money. 10 million. The organization has pretty much all the control and all the leverage right here. And my guess would be that what's going to happen is he's going to take this all the way until the end of August. He's going to sit camp out. He's going to set the tone for the following year, saying, "Hey, listen, you don't try and pull this tag stuff again." He's going to wind up playing for the tag for 10 million. And in terms of drafting, right now, I've been having a field day in online championships, getting him in the second round. We see him go in the mid-second round in most drafts. I've been trying to take advantage of that as much as I can this past month, thinking that in the next couple of weeks, he's going to go right back to being a first rounder. What this does now, if he doesn't sign by Monday and he takes us all the way to August, we might see a full summer of Saquon mid-second, late second. And it's going to create a lot of value when he shows up, after camp is over. He's going to pull that, I'll sign right here for 10 million, late August, right before the first week of the season. It's my guess.
I think Nando kind of nailed it when he said that this is take the discount, especially when we're talking about these large field tournaments and you're looking for an edge. And I think getting that sort of production slightly later. I mean, even Chris, even like 5 spots in ADP can be such a massive difference. You've seen it over the years, guys dropping, people taking the discount. We saw it with Kamara before. We've seen it with Tyreek Hill in years past. So I think Nando's spot on. Want to also just quickly, not on the show sheet, but pick your brain, guys. We're seeing Saquon. We're also seeing Johnathan Taylor. Where are we at on Johnathan Taylor, Chris? Because I think that he's kind of like, I know that there's certain drafters who see him at a certain range in the second round, and that's an auto pick for him. They think it's an unbelievable value. I'm a little bit indifferent because I think that maybe he has a little bit of a cap ceiling next to a running quarterback, and we don't know how much they're going to check down. So he's already capped as a receiver for me, but now maybe he's conceding 5 touchdowns or so around the goal line with Richardson. Where are you at with Taylor? Is he a guy that you're considering at ADP, or are you avoiding him?
Theo, he's not one of my favorite second round running backs. You look at, like we said, Saquon and Nick Chubb and even Tony Pollard, if you want to give him a second round price tag right now, late in the second. Where Taylor's going in that 13 to 17 range, I'm still loving getting those receivers, clipping one of those elite receivers in my eyes. So, the Anthony Richardson factor mixed in with the fact that offensive line a couple of years back was a top 3 offensive line. And now it just seems like it's going down and down and falling apart a little more. So Taylor is a little bit of a fade for me for this upcoming season.
Yeah, me too. And Nando, where are you at on Taylor? Do you think it's a Taylor beats expectations and produces like a top 3 back, or do you worry that he's going to continue showing like a little bit like he did last year? Last year, the points per game went way down.
Yeah, it was a disaster last year, but it's still like Chris said, like the line was so good. And now we've seen what he could do, even just like a mediocre line. And like, just flip it back to the Giants, what they did with, they're finally shoring up their line, and look what's happening, with Danny Dimes. So like, I think the line in some of these certain cases, you can't underrate. I do think it has an effect on Johnathan Taylor more so than having the running quarterback too.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting, but I know a couple of drafters who are going to be like, at least at his current ADP, they're going to be 30+%. We got into a little bit today on Twitter, where I'll say Chad Schroeder and I'll say Nelson Sousa and Todd Burrows were all very generous with the way that they treat their builds. But Chris, if you're going to do a high volume, let's say you're entering 25 online championships or some number, or Nando, you're doing 25, best ball manias on Underdog. Do you guys want to track your percentages? Do you think it's different for redraft? Do you think it's different for best ball? Are you a portfolio guy, Chris, in terms of like treating it like a business where I want to know I have 30% of this guy or 18% of this guy, or are you like a value guy? Because I think you talk to some very successful drafters have very different ideas about this.
In online championship season, Theo, my draft approach changes drastically from when main event season hits. I'm going after my guys' main event season. Right now in June and July, when I'm in these drafts, I'm trying to take as much value as I can. I'm not going to go in every night whenever I'm drafting and take the same guys each and every time. So I'm not going to be overweight on one player. I'm going to mix it around and have different looks. But, I'm going to look for the most value at certain positions right now that I feel the board is giving me in online championship season.
How about you, Nando? Is this another underdog effect type thing for drafters? But you start hearing the word portfolio a lot.
Yeah, so I will have a lot of the same guys, but it'll be like the last 5 on my team because I'm moving them up 20, 30 spots. So it's not like every time it comes around to this pick, I'm getting Saquon every single time. The top's going to be totally varied for me. It's kind of like razor thin margins anyway, and you're just spreading your risk a lot. But like, if I like some guys to break out of the back end, there will be a bunch of teams with the same 6 on it. I'm not doing it on purpose.
That's a good point.
That's
a good point, Nando.
Yeah.
You always find yourself your certain players that you target late in drafts, in that rounds 13 through 20. They always wind up, that nice little sleeper, and you might be overexposed on that, but that doesn't hurt you.
Right.
It's like Nando said, the first 6, 7, 8 rounds of your draft, you have to mix up the look a bit right about now.
Yeah, shout out to Ryan Links who posted his portfolio. He's maxed out the Best Ball Mania. I think that's 150 entries that you can do this year in the $25. So he's a very successful FFPC drafter. And Chris, his number one guy was Robert Woods. He's got a sick amount of Robert Woods. So big hat tip to Ryan Links for actually putting it out there and being very, very generous with that. I thanked him on Twitter. Guys, I want to talk about DeAndre Hopkins. If you follow these books, you've seen the line movement it went from basically a plus number to a minus number and a heavy one, like minus 300 right now for DeAndre Hopkins to land in Tennessee. How do you treat DeAndre Hopkins, Chris? Do you take this is an alpha, this is a man who's going to command targets, he's going to be a clear number one, or do you have a little bit of worries about him in that offense?
So Theo, one of the players that when I've looked at the draft board since, in the last couple months that I was shocked at his ADP was DeAndre Hopkins. We saw him routinely, his ADP stated like in the middle of the 3rd round for a while now. Now you see it starting to dip into the 40s. I don't even think that's good enough. I think it should be further down the road into the 50s and 60s. If he winds up in Tennessee, it's an okay landing spot for him, but he, a declining player, the speed aspect is going. And for me, DeAndre Hopkins won't be on many of my teams, if any at all.
Okay. And how about you, Nando? Do you think that bet on the player or fade him because of the team?
Nah, it's not even so much the team. It's like Chris said, like, I feel like, and this might be unfair to him because they're 2 different scenarios, but kind of like the same storyline. Like we've watched Julio Jones beat DeAndre Hopkins just like 2 years ahead. That's kind of how I'm looking at it. Like at some point, these guys decline. Salfino's done a lot of good stuff on that, on the decline of the wide receiver as they get older and, they're a little bigger. I'm not excited about it, man. It just feels like a Julio Jones thing to me all over again. And I feel like I've learned that lesson.
So then let's take a devil's advocate approach. Chris, if you're off of DeAndre Hopkins, will you take a discounted Treylon Burks? As soon as D-Hop signs, you're going to see Treylon Burks' ADP drop, I'd imagine 15 spots from where he's going in NFFC. Are you into taking a younger player who flashed last season, with the news on D-Hops.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would help Treylon Burks. A lot of people would look at it as a negative, but you know what? It'll take certain attention away from him. It might take top corners away from him on certain weeks. He can learn a lot from DeAndre Hopkins, and maybe the targets will be less than if D-Hop signs somewhere else, and Treylon would go, back up to that, top target guy. But in this situation, you sometimes see it work out for the better. Less targets, but more productive on a weekly basis. And, I think if anyone's going to get a little bit of a bump down out of all these guys, it would be Chig, just going down to the third option in the pass game where, a lot of drafters right now have fallen in love with taking him as their sleeper tight end for the season because, hey, when you can get a tight end where he's going off the board after pick 100 and take a shot on a guy like him that's going to see heavy targets as the second option in an offense, that's usually what I'm looking for in a tight end in fantasy if I'm not going the elite tight end route. So Chig would be the guy that out of between him and Treylon that I would say, you know what, he might take a little bit more of a hit.
Yeah, we haven't seen a number 2 target in Ryan Tannehill's 4 seasons in Tennessee see more than 92 total targets. So if Treylon gets 100 next to D-Hops, he's kind of the outlier here. But I agree with you. It really would beat up Chig and make him a very touchdown-dependent guy on an offense where they might not score a whole lot of touchdowns.
Yeah.
Nando,
where else can we see him going, Theo? I mean, sorry to jump
D-Hops,
in.
I think I could see New England. But Nando, you take this one. Where else?
No, I'm joking.
I'll say New England. I think New England is always waiting in the wings. I don't think it's going to be as sexy a landing spot. I think Buffalo coming out and publicly saying, we'd love to have you, but we don't want to pay you is weird. Because it kind of maybe puts a little pressure on D-Hops. Hey, do you really want to win a ring? But these guys got to make their last paycheck too. This might be the last big contract he gets in his entire career. So I love watching D-Hops. I think he's a warrior. I think he's a guy that really loves the game, and he comes out and plays so damn hard. So I'll be rooting for him. Nando, how about the big dog? I think that's kind of the maybe the winner of all this, because the style of Tennessee is not going to change. It's a Derrick Henry offense. And all of a sudden, they go from lacking weapons to adding a one who's been very successful. So even if you're not betting against D-Hops fantasy-wise, stylistically, can it help the offense and maybe elevate Big Dog a little bit from where he's going?
Well, yeah. Plus, I mean, the quarterback situation isn't exactly like set in stone. Like, you don't know who's going to be back there. It's going to be, I mean, probably like my hunch right now is half and half, and I don't know who the second half is going to be after Tannehill. But that's just going to benefit him more, I would think. Like, let's establish the run game, get that going, and then we can break it open with Hopkins on one side, gigantic Burks on the other. It worked for AJ Brown. When AJ Brown was there, the whole deal was like Burks is like the next AJ Brown, and that offense worked fine in Tennessee with both of them there, with AJ Brown and Henry there at the same time. So like I don't see why. Like it's a proven formula, I guess. If you believe that Burks, he's not AJ Brown, but I mean, like, he fills the role nicely. So basically, yeah, short answer is yes. I think Derrick Henry is going to benefit. Again, man, he's got somewhere, but he's catching passes at the same time. It's kind of like he's making up for his deficiencies with these new elements of his game. He's getting targeted and catching passes. So yeah.
Chris, how about you? I know this is a sort of profile that maybe in years past you could have faded. An older back with this much mileage, but he's going a little bit lower. You can get him in the late second in FFPC. Where are you at on Henry this year? Is he a fade or is he neutral?
Yeah, Theo, it's crazy because we've been burned by fading Derrick Henry these last couple of years.
Yeah, for sure.
And raise my hand. That's definitely been me because I faded him. But I think with Henry this year is if I wasn't there, what's the saying? If you're not there for the wedding, don't be there for the funeral. Nando, you know that one. Come on, help me out.
It's a good one.
It's something like that.
I like that one.
So listen, another year older for Henry. If Hopkins comes into this offense, it's funny how I think all of our outlooks will change for this Tennessee offense. All of a sudden, it's one of those offenses where if D-Hop doesn't sign there, it's like, Tennessee, that's a garbage top, bottom 5 offense. Now Hopkins, if he signs there, all of a sudden it's like, wow, these teams got weapons. They got a good upcoming tight end, Treylon Burks, a nice young and upcoming receiver, and good veteran receiver on the opposite side. And if Henry could give them one more year out of production, this could be a sneaky top half of fantasy offense for the season. But Henry's another guy, Theo, that late second round price tag right now. I'm just going in different directions. I think Henry and Taylor, you hit on the two guys that I won't have much in my portfolio this year.
Yeah, I can see that. It's the low receiving upside, touchdown dependent backs, and you might.
And their O-line. That O-line is not what another. I hate to go right back to like what Taylor said, but Tennessee was a line that you could rely on a couple of years ago. Now it's not. It's a bottom 10 offensive line in football going into this season.
Yeah, for sure. No, lacking the maulers that they've had in years past. And I'll say, if you want to bet on that profile, just take Nick Chubb. I know you're a Nick Chubb guy, and you talked about him last year when he came on Goat District, and he's kind of in that range too. He's climbing up a little bit, but Nick Chubb, we like the quality of the offense. If I want a running back to bet on him as a touchdown scorer and not a receiver, just take Nick Chubb. It's that simple, right, Chris?
It's that simple, Theo.
Nando, Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
No. I'll take Chubb over Taylor and Henry every day of the week in the second round.
And Nando, where would you like to see Dalvin Cook land that would be beneficial to him as a fantasy player?
Man, I don't know. At this point, I don't know where he's going to go that they're going to give enough of a share for you to be like, hey, let me the old Dalvin Cook value. So, you run through all the teams, maybe he's got to supplant someone, but maybe this guy is. It looks like he could beat him out, but he might be the guy still. The coach might like him better. He might be a better fit for the system. Cook still has to. It doesn't take forever to learn a system, but still, I don't know, man. I think no one's really talking about this, but Cook still has those civil charges against him. And last I heard, there was a trial coming up this summer. It's weird because it's a civil trial, not a criminal trial, but you maybe don't want to touch that for a little while. Maybe that's why it's taking so long and people are just waiting on it. But I don't know, man. That's a mess. Even at a super duper discount, I don't think I'm going to touch Cook at all.
I think, Theo, anywhere but Miami is a disaster for fantasy and for fantasy players. Right now we're drafting Dalvin at what we perceive as a value in the late 5th, early mid 6th round.
I would take him in the 9th.
You're not getting him in the 9th in any
that's
any
all
draft.
good. Then I will not pay. I would pay $32 for him in an auction. How about that? I wouldn't pay $19 for him in an auction.
Nando, you're gonna get stuck with him in an auction. You're gonna throw out Dalvin.
$32. This is when Nando goes off the deep end, Theo. This is what happens.
What's the 5th round running back cost to you in a $200?
I'll take Dalvin for $48, and all right. Well, you might as well take Nick Chubb. Anyway,
I'm just letting you know.
You let me know in the 9th round.
Breece Hall. Hall has actually seen his ADP. It went up when there was the optimism, and now it's come down just a couple of spots. He's living in the 3rd round right now in FFPC. Obviously, we have concerns about how much he's going to get coming off of injury. Where are you at on Breece?
Well, Vaccaro's a Jets fan. He can answer this one.
No, Vaccaro's a Giants fan, Nando. That was fine.
Well, we're all fans of elite fantasy production.
Yes, we are.
So let's hear it.
Theo, Breece Hall, I am going to have to see. He's one of the two players, him and Javonte Williams. I'm going to need to see them and how they look in mid to late August if they're going to get some preseason work. If not, these are usually the type of players coming off injury, ACL tears the year before that I usually fade. And at Breece Hall at a 3rd round price tag, although I don't think that'll be the price tag come late August and September, he won't be on many of my teams also, just because of that reason. It usually takes 9 to 12 months. We saw this with J.K. Dobbins last year. He came back. He was there for the start of the season, wasn't himself. Usually takes that second season to, go back to form. So that first year, I usually fade these Breece Hall, Javonte Williams type running backs off the ACL tears the prior year. If they're going to beat me, coming off, hat tip to them, but I would need significantly more of a discount on those type of players than where I see them going off the board right now.
That's kind of like my problem. So yeah, well, that's the problem. The way I play a lot, it's split. A lot of players, I look like, what's this guy going to do for me in week 11, 12, 13 and on? And I think Breece Hall, if someone picks in the 3rd round, for most of the season, they might look like they made a huge mistake, but you sneak into the playoffs, you get that 6. I know that's not how you play it in the, exactly in NFFC and stuff, but in a home league, if someone takes Breece Hall in 3rd, and he's crap for the first 11 weeks, and then he turns it on because he's just past that point and he's good again. He could lead someone to a title at the right time when everyone else is decimated at running back, and they're gonna be like, "Wow, I was a genius getting the 3rd round pick. Could you believe it? He won me my title. He's a league winner." And
you might be 3-8, but you might be 3-8 at that point when Breece Hall turns it up in the back. No, I'm just saying that's right. I don't like to play that way. Where of course we're all going to draft him and think second half of the season he could turn into last year's J.K. Dobbins, where he looked great for the last 6 weeks of the season. But am I out of it? If I'm using a 3rd round, 4th round pick on Breece Hall, especially in the leagues that we play in, Theo, you gotta hit the ground running. I don't have time to play games and not use my 3rd round draft pick unless I hit a grand slam in the 8th, 9th, 10th rounds with another running back. So I don't like to play that second half. I'll have Breece Hall in my back pocket. I need him up and going from week 1.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point, Chris. I think that you have to know your format. If it's like a home league and you think you can get by, he's absolutely a hammer. But if it's something like NFFC, FFPC, that regular season money adds up too. You win a couple of those regular seasons, then you're feeling a little less pressure to try to hit in the postseason. So I'll say that hits. And big, quick shout out to anybody listening who's, we get a lot of FFPC listeners. NFFC ADP is free. You can go right on NFFC and pull up their ADP. I draft in both. I think they're both great. And Chris and I draft against one another, at least in a couple drafts in New York City. And we'll probably do a couple more online. But we're in the New York Super, Chris. That's going to be a lot of fun. That's always a really good one. That's one of the highlights of my summer. So I'm looking forward to that one. And Nelson and I are due in that league. I'm putting that out there for the universe. It's our year. We've been unfortunate with injuries. Yeah, I thought we did too.
I thought you had it last year, Theo, but maybe this year better luck.
The football.
And then after the draft, the Gramercy Street Tavern waits for you.
Big apologies. When you have a guy like Nando Fino, like a guy who's been this big a voice in the fantasy space, you fumble words and
come on,
happen. It's a lot of pressure, on us younger podcasters, Nando. So I appreciate that. And guys, I want to quickly keep going here. I've asked every single guest on Press Coverage, my new podcast, and First Class Fantasy this question for like a month, and I think it's a great one. If you could know the final stats of any single player in fantasy, who would it be? What's that one player that you see having like a massive wide range, or maybe one player that's production would open up others on his team? Start with Nando here. Where's one guy that maybe confuses you a little bit, or you just could see going in many different directions?
I'd love to know Michael Thomas. I think he's like,
that's a good one.
That's really good.
Yeah, he's going to have an interesting quarterback situation. He's been out for so long, but it hasn't all been injury. He's talented. He's still kind of young. He's very interesting to me. He's going in a spot where I kind of like, should I take, and I think he's at that spot where he'll even last like another round because so many people just don't believe in him anymore, where you could be like, now should I take him? I'd love to know which way he's going to go.
I love that answer. And Olave too, Chris.
Yeah,
totally changes Olave.
It totally does. And even a guy like, if Michael Thomas isn't going to be there, does Shaheed get a bump up? That's a really good one. And I wanted to say that because, I find myself every time in that 8th, 9th round area staring at Michael Thomas in all my drafts and saying, you know what, if Michael Thomas comes back off this injury and gives us one more big year here, that's bad news for Olave, but Michael Thomas could be a home run on draft boards right now. Theo, for me, my guy would be Tyler Lockett, and that would have a trickle-down effect to multiple things. One, I want to know what Lockett's final numbers are, because I want to know if DK Metcalf, if I could consider him in that upper elite wide receiver 1 range, like with those, early second round wide receiver guys. Because right now, DK is going at the end of the 2nd round, early 3rd. And right now, I'm like, am I all in on DK this year? Or is it going to get spread around too much where he doesn't live up to that, billing on the draft board? And as well, Jackson Smith in Jigba, who I love a lot. Is he going to be a home run pick in that 8th round? So it would affect, I want to know Lockett's numbers to affect the other 2 wide receivers. And also, Fernando's boy Geno Smith going off the board at QB 15 right now. He could hit the board as a top 10 quarterback in fantasy and be one of those late round quarterback home runs again with all these weapons he has.
I love both your answers. I think they're both very well thought out. And I'll say I have a $350 bet going with Billy Muzio right now of Jackson Smith and Jigba finishing inside the top 36 at the position. Billy could have given me like wide receiver 31. I still would have taken the action, but you know, he's very bold and very brash with his bets with me. Who wins the bet, me or Billy?
I think you win that.
You. Yeah,
Thank you guys.
I like your shots.
Appreciate it.
Theo. Bet on talent. Bet on talent, you know.
Just don't watch us on the Billy Muzio show next week and see what we say.
There you go. There you go. Well, this is the Billy Muzio show.
I know, I'm joking. I know.
So, yeah, there you go. So, guys, I want to move over to draft strategy. Chris, you're one of the innovators when it comes to zero RB. You have receipts to show this. You had a lot of success back when people weren't really doing it. You embraced it. Now we've kind of reached a tipping point. I had Josh Larkey on press coverage this week. We were talking about the new RB dead zone. We concluded in FFPC, it's round 4. With NFFC, with the third round reversal, it's probably about that range. But it's completely kind of shifted in terms of you have so many drafters embracing the wide receiver position. In NFFC, you get Mahomes kind of sneaking in there. FFPC, you obviously get the tight ends pushed up. But for the most part, wide receivers are ruling the land. In most underdog settings and NFFC, FFPC, you're seeing like 14 of the first 24 picks in any given draft, at least, going in the wide receiver position. Do you think that this is a year where you could flip the switch and go running back, or are you going to get too jammed at the wide receiver spot?
Well, Theo, I could probably talk about this topic for the rest of the show. It's that good of a topic, but I'll say this Cliff Note version. You'll be one of the 1 or 2 teams in your league, each league that starts off running back. It'll be the unique approach. I'll talk in terms of NFFC drafts right now. If you're doing running back approach, you're forcing your hands pretty much to go wide receiver heavy these next rounds. And, if you're in the back end of the first round and you go running back, you're putting yourself in a position in the late 4th and 5th rounds where that wide receiver tier, that wide receiver cliff starts to fall off a little bit. It also takes you out of the mix, in my opinion. If you start running back this year, it takes you out of the mix because you're going to be chasing receivers the rest of the draft. You're going to feel behind in the receiver position where you're probably out of the mix now in one of those elite top 8 quarterbacks that I refer to this year. Probably taking yourself out of the mix for an elite tight end, if that's another route you want to go. And you're forcing yourself into these receivers. Everyone is going into these drafts and seeing what's available at the running back position in rounds 4 through 8. And you don't want to put yourself in a position, as much as everybody would love a Bijan Saquon, a Bijan Chubb start, whatever combo you want. I don't think you want to find yourself in that 5th, 6th, 7th round and be on the board and you're staring at Mixon, Walker, J.K. Dobbins, Aaron Jones, all these guys, and you can't pull the trigger on these guys because you're forced to take some receiver that you're not in love with, but you need them at this point. Okay, so with all that said, I'll say no, but if you look at the draft board this year and determine this is the year to make your flex player an RB3, and you're going to start off with his Barkley, Bijan, just say, and then say, hey, I'm comfortable with one of those running backs in round 6 as my flex, and I'm just going to put it all together at the wide receiver position, then go right ahead. But for me, I don't think you want to be in those rounds. The value right now is at the running back position on the draft board.
We do the hard way draft in the FFPC, which is kind of like my New York Super, but it's a Players Championship FFPC. B-Bab Gutoba, Dan Williamson, tons of great Austin Martin, Dwayne McFarland's in that one. And I started out with Bijan and Tony Pollard, and I liked it, but you're absolutely right, Chris. You're just playing catch up. And in FFPC, you're also playing catch up at the tight end position. I've actually liked my drafts better when I've started out with a 0 or at least a hero RB approach. But we have a great question in the chat. Who's your favorite 0-ish RB1? And Chris, I'll also ask you to define this because this is like, I asked Sean Siegel the same thing when I podcasted with him. How do you define a 0 RB start? Because a lot of people think it's, I take 4 straight wide receivers and then I go running back. There's other people who are like, go to hell. I have to start out with like 7 non-running backs and then go running back. Where do you draw the line and what it is?
I mean, it's changed through the years, in my opinion. Back in my day, I don't want to sound like I'm 80 years old and stuff, but I would start off my drafts with 3 receivers, hit one running back that I think I could rely on in that 4th, 5th round, and then draft a whole bunch of backup running backs and wait for an injury to hit. To me now, 0 RB. If I start my draft off with 3 receivers in the 1st round, that to me that's a 0 RB type of build. And I'm trying to hit on guys in the 5th round. Right now, Joe Mixon, to me, a lot of people, the whole fantasy community is, split on him, I think. But I think right now, Joe Mixon in the mid 50s is a chance you have to take. You're getting a piece of that big time offense. I think one of the things that we do in this industry is we fail to recalculate their ADP once news comes out. Months ago, Joe Mixon, everybody was running scared of him that he had that incident at the house. Everybody thought it was a suspension coming, could get cut, everything like that. And he fell down the draft boards. But now as the season's gone on, the summer has gone on, it looks like his role is going to be pretty secure in this offense. And I don't know if we've moved him up enough where he's not a crazy value right now. So right now, my favorite 0 RB running back, if I start off wide receiver heavy, would be Mixon in the 5th round. And Ken Walker, you could say that as well in the late 4th.
I like that answer a lot. It's actually funny you say polarizing for Mixon. Billy and I both view him as an immense value. It's definitely corrected. I know Curtis Patrick, a couple of really sharp people are on him as a value. And then Josh Larkey comes on and thinks he's the definition of a dead zone guy because he's older and he's propped up. So he's definitely polarizing, but we love the quality of the offense. And he had his career high in receptions last year. Where are you at, Nando, on Mixon? Do you like him this year?
Yeah, I hate to be agreeing with Chris on all these questions, and we're playing so nice, but
it's okay.
It's all right, Nando.
When Chris is correct, agree with him.
Yeah, it's everything he says is right, and he's there at the right spot to grab. Almost to, you could never do this and should never do this, but if you draft enough and get used to it and go to the same place over and over again, and you see it happening over and over again, almost reverse engineer and be like, all right, I think I can mix him right here. So these are what I can give him my first 4 picks. I can go a little more wide receiver heavy than I'm comfortable with because of Joe Mixon. I know he'll be there. And if I got to grab him around earlier, then I got to grab him around earlier. But there's always someone in that draft who's going to like Joe Mixon more than you, and I'll take him in the 4th round and mess everything up. But yeah, I like him to that degree where I would pursue him.
Just 2 things, Theo, real quick. Also, if you take Mixon in the 5th, I think you have if you want to play it this way, if you're a little shaky on him, but you think that, wow, he could be a huge value, there's always a great out with Chase, taking Chase Brown, 10 rounds later, just to cover your ass if you're a Mixon drafter. If Mixon is garbage and you think Chase Brown's the up-and-coming running back that's going to take over, you can play it that way. And on top of it, when we go with a wide receiver heavy approach, I don't need Mixon to be giving me 25, 30 points every week like I do one of these 1st, 2nd round running backs. I need Mixon to come in, run for 60 yards a game, okay, on 15 carries, and catch 4 balls for 50 yards, okay, each week. Give me my 15, 16 fantasy points, and I'll go over 20 points when he falls in the end zone. So, it's that's the way I look at it when I draft my teams, and I'm, trying to figure out which, running backs in those mid rounds are the safest to get me 15 to 20 points each week off a heavy wide receiver build. Mixon fits that build for me.
Yeah. And for me, I like Mixon. I do think he's come up a little bit. And I'll say that I actually started 4 straight wide receivers in this main I'm in. I love getting Cam Akers. I can get him at the 5-6 turn in FFPC. And I think he's got a high volume and a high potential outcome. I think he can give me 15 points per game this year. And I think a lot of people have been burned on him in the past and just don't want to draft him, but I like him a lot. One other running back that I know you're on right now, Chris, and I am also on, is J.K. Dobbins. I think this Baltimore Ravens offense is going to really overperform, and I think that the Todd Monken effect is real. Where are you at with Dobbins? Talk about him and why he's one of your targets.
Yeah, Theo, this is an eye test, and sometimes I preach that all the time on me and Nando's show. Is a lot of people, a lot of analysts, they'll go with their analytics, they'll look at their numbers, blah blah blah. For me, I'm more of an eye test guy, and those last 5-6 weeks of the season when Dobbins came back off that cleanup surgery early in the season, he jumped off the screen to me. So heading into this season, getting the bump in a up-tempo offense that I think Monken is going to come in and run, I think the sky is pointing up. I think he's a huge value right now in the 6th round where he's going. I think he could score double-digit touchdowns. I like the competition that he has, which is not much in Gus Edwards. So I think he's going to be on the field a ton. And, you mix that all together, and that puts me in on J.K. Dobbins behind another solid offensive line, another offense that you got to concentrate on the quarterback. What he's going to do, opening up lanes in Lamar Jackson, and J.K. Dobbins, I think, could be a home run pick this year.
I love it. Nando, what do you think about the Baltimore offense taking a big step forward in year one? Do you think that we need to pump the brakes, or is this enthusiasm real?
Well, like if you follow Greg Roman and what he did in his career, like he would like produce like amazing running games, right? And like that, like he was a very specific guy who's just like really good at making these running games. Monken, like I think there's going to be a balance here that we aren't giving enough credit for what Roman was able to do. I don't think Monken can come in and you can guarantee like Dobbins is going to have a 6-yard per carry average or anything like that. Chris mentioned he's got Gus Edwards. The Ravens seem to love going back to Gus Edwards, and I don't know if that was. But they do, and that's more of a Harbaugh thing than a Roman thing. Monken's going to be helpless. I mean, if Harbaugh's like, let's get Gus in there, man. You know, how much is Monken going to be able to control that offense if the love for Gus Edwards comes from the very top? Odell Beckham's in there now. You know what I mean? Like they upgraded the pass catchers, like you said. It's not just like the Mark Andrews show anymore. I don't know, man. And Lamar Jackson's still coming off an injury. I'm not worried about that, but I mean, like if you're throwing in like the 8% chance that might affect him this year still, I'm just I think J.K. Dobbins, the way you hear people talk about him and gush, he's going to be the guy with the helium this year, and you're not going to be able to get him out of the 3rd round. Like he's going to be gone by the 3rd round, I think, by the time August rolls around. Put all that together, and it's just not for me. I think he just got too many. If he's on a different team in a different scenario, sure. But all these things kind of just like boom, 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 and like just pile up to the point where I can't pay the price that I think I'm going to have to pay for him.
If he steams up to the 3rd round, Nando, then I won't own much J.K. Dobbins. But it's hard, Theo. You know how this goes. Late August, September, the receivers are the ones that get all the steam right now. And I don't see how all these running backs that are in the 5th and 6th round can move up so much more, because we're a wide receiver. We're a wide receiver industry right now. And everybody wants to get their hands on those receivers in those 3rd and 4th rounds. So I don't know how much helium all these running backs in the 4th through 6th rounds can get.
Yeah, I actually think big preseason games. That's it. That's all it takes.
Yeah, sure.
I think that there's a lot of enthusiasm with the Baltimore offense, and I see Lamar Jackson, like the tier is closing between him and whoever QB3 is in your draft, at least in FFPC. NFFC, the 6-point passing touchdowns, a little bit more of a great equalizer. Wanted to talk about offenses in general. Last season was a disastrous one for Denver. Finished dead last in points per game. You saw so many Denver stacks just crushed. Chris, I know we both had hopes for Cortland Sutton. We don't even need to talk about that. That one's like, we'll scrub that out.
That was my death kill. It was the death shot.
I did not, Sutton, burned a lot of people, but do we see a resurgence in year one under Sean Payton? Maybe talk a little bit about Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah, it's funny. We, as fantasy players, Theo, we can't be recency bias. We can't say, oh, he burned me last year, I'm not going back to the well. If you're getting good enough value the following year and you like and see a change, you got to go right back, to that. And that's the way I see it this year. I think a lot of these guys are undervalued, and that Denver offense, you got to erase the bad memory from your brain from last year. They bring in a whole new crew. Tim Patrick is back healthy. Jerry Jeudy, I'm back in on Jeudy. Sutton, not so much, Theo, just because
he's done.
He's done. Yeah, I'm out. I'm out. I just think they have so many moving parts. I think they're deep, this team. I loved what they did with signing McGlinchey and Ben Powers to come in, solidify that offensive line. I think that'll make Russ a lot more comfortable this year. And with Peyton's, hopefully winning formula and system coming in, I'm going to be buying in on this Denver offense a lot. And Greg Dulcich is definitely one of those tight ends. When I wait on tight end and don't get one of the elite guys, he's one of those guys that I'll be looking to scoop up as well.
I like Dulcich a lot. Nando, is Russ cooked, or does Russ bounce back and return maybe low end? We'll give him a low bar here. Is he a low end QB1 this year?
Oh yeah, I think what you saw last year wasn't Russell Wilson. It was, an injured, hobbled guy trying to play through pain with a coach who was like way in over his head. Unfortunately, he seems like a nice guy, whatever. But that wasn't Russell Wilson last year. Sean Payton is going to turn Russell Wilson back in it. The reason I like Geno Smith last year was because he had these weapons, and I'm still kind of on Cortland Sutton. And so you got Sutton, Judy, you got Dulcich. You just have like,
of course you
weapons.
are.
Billy Musio's actually on him too. Like higher
Really?
than consensus. Billy is like the one. There's a lot of pushback though.
What's not to like?
Are
we're
like
seeing we're seeing that a lot with failed wide receivers last year, Theo. That such a discount. Look at Gabe Davis getting a 6-round discount on him. Rashad Bateman, you're getting a 6 or 7 round discount on. Sutton, the same thing. So all of last year's darlings. What?
Gabe Davis never did. Rashad Bateman never put up a good season. Gabe Davis put up a good 3 games at the end of the season. Cortland Sutton's had success sustained.
Fair point. I'm just saying that a lot of those third-round wide receivers from last year where everybody was loved going in on, you're getting them now in the 9th and 10th round. So a lot of people are going to go back in on the discount this year and take one more shot. It's not going to burn them like they burnt us last year.
Yeah,
right.
No, for sure. And also wanted to kind of touch on, we always see this, like especially last year was really amplified, where if we just pick the correct offense, we see a number of ADP winners coming off that same team. Jacksonville last year, Miami last year, Philadelphia was a massive ADP winners, and there were a few more. Nando, what's one offense that you think could really beat expectations this year that maybe people are sleeping on a little bit?
I don't know. Like, you guys tell me if they're sleeping on them, but I think the Steelers, they seem a little more high powered to me than people give them credit for. I guess it's if you like Kenny Pickett, and I do, but like I love Pickens. I think he's amazing. I still kind of like Deontay Johnson. I like Najee Harris. I like Freiermuth. It just seems like they have a bunch of pieces in place that could click. And I know people crap on Canada a lot, but like Tomlin's he doesn't make mistakes. Like Tomlin's like an amazing coach, and him actually sticking with Canada, that's kind of like the stamp of legitimacy that I kind of need just to give him one last chance and see what he can do. But I really think the Steelers are underrated. I don't think people are giving them enough credit. And if you want to go deeper, I could probably say Atlanta. Atlanta seems pretty electric to me. Yeah.
I love your Pittsburgh answer, Nando, because you have all Kenny Pickett doesn't need to be like QB 10. He just needs to be like QB 15, and all of a sudden 2 of those pass catchers crush their ADP. Najee Harris is interesting because the number of catches dropped from the 70s to the 40s with the addition of Jalen Warren. So like, Chris, we need Najee Harris to get back into like the 60s for him to make a huge impact based on where he's getting drafted. But I love your answers, Nando. And Atlanta, like Arthur Smith is so beat up. But I think that, one thing he's given us is running back production. He's got arguably the most talented running back in football now. We could do a whole show about Bijan Robinson. I'm in, Chris. But like if we just see consolidation for London and Pitts, they both can beat their ADP too, because there's not a whole lot of threats there. Chris, any offenses you're really betting on to beat expectations?
There's a couple offenses I love this year, but the one that I would point to is another AFC North team, and that's the Cleveland Browns. I think they have the potential to be a top 5 offense this year. I think if Deshaun Watson,
it's because his bar used to be a Browns bar, dude. That's why.
There you go.
He loves the Browns, man.
That's definitely the reason, Nando.
That's why. That's what it is. Yeah.
But no, I like the fact they bring in Elijah Moore. I just think this team is deep at the skill positions. They drafted Kid Tillman. They're just deep. They have a lot of outs in this offense, and bringing in Elijah Moore to go with David Njoku, who is a top 8 receiving tight end in my opinion. Cooper looked like a legit wide receiver 1 last year, and a guy that's not getting the love on the draft boards this year, but because I don't know if people realize how good he was last year with Donovan Peoples-Jones on the other side. You're giving Watson 4 really good options out there in the pass game. If Watson,
did you say was good last year?
Donovan Peoples-Jones.
We'll give Nando.
We'll give you your flowers, Nando. Don't worry. You're gonna get them.
It's not me. It's you. It's you hated him so much and refused to listen to anything about Donovan Peoples-Jones. You called him Donovan Jones Peoples for the first 6 weeks.
No, I never said that. Theo,
well, Nando,
this is what I got to deal with.
You called him Donovan Grahamercy Jones for most of the season.
Anyway, Theo, back to the original thing. If Watson now gets comfortable in this, offense, he was off for so long. He comes back. I'm not going to wrongfully judge him based on those last 6 games off the suspension. He had some bad weather games, just getting back into the flow of it. And again, more weapons this year to add into the offense from last year. So a decent offensive line and a great running back, a top 5 running back. Listen, this offense, I could see being one of those offenses like Miami from last year that just takes off and puts up 30 a game.
And I like the fact that, they didn't bring back Kareem Hunt, which says to me, this is a different offense. And it's Kevin Stefanski year 3. They're chasing Cincinnati. Baltimore's going to be more high-powered. Nando's on Pittsburgh taking a step forward. I think the AFC North, weather permitting, is going to be a shootout offense, which is really cool because that's always been an offense where when those teams go head-to-head, you're worried you're going to get like a 16-13 clunker and it ruins your week. So this year, I think
days are over.
Yeah,
those days are over, man.
They're over until it gets cold, guys, and then it burns us in the fantasy playoff. Nando, you can flex this one. Last year, you gave us Curtis Samuel. You gave us Donovan Peoples-Jones. Who is your dumpster dive wide receiver this year? That guy that no one wants to draft that could be fun.
I don't know, man. Like I was thinking about it.
Humble now.
No, it's not humble. Hey, please. There we go. There's pause to Vaccaro. I kind of Wan'Dale Robinson, but I also like Isaiah Hodgins, and I do kind of like Paris Campbell's getting. I didn't love him, but he's getting this buzz that I didn't expect.
Name some more Giants. Go ahead.
That's the problem. Well, that's what I'm saying.
I like Giants wide receiver room.
I like Wan'Dale Robinson, but I also could see like Isaiah Hodgins was in that offense last year. It was really good, and they kept using him. And Danny, he seems to like him. But then, even Kenny Galladay's still there. But you know what? I went back to Atlanta. What?
Galladay's gone.
Galladay's gone.
I know. I just wanted to bring him up.
I know.
I like where your head's at though, Nando, because there's going to be I think one of those guys probably is fantasy useful in New York. No one's drafting any of them, especially in like an underdog or best ball format. Like I've been trying to pair that up. I like Darren Waller as well. Where are you at on Waller?
Love him, man. I love him. It's they used the tight end last year. It didn't. If you go back and look at the stats, like just look at it won't look like it, but they did. And then losing his name basically got his eye almost poked out, and that messed up the whole thing. When Bellinger, when he got the nasty eye.
He got yoked. He got yoked this offseason. I don't know if you've seen him.
Yeah, I saw that one. He's definitely influenced by the Waller acquisition. He's hitting the weight room.
Yeah, for sure.
Wanted to talk to you guys about this one. This is always interesting. I talk about the money zone in wide receivers, and I always source ADP data from the NFFC for this one because NFFC is so wide receiver heavy. But the bottom of the wide receiver 2 tier to about the wide receiver 4 tier has given us massive fantasy wins the last few years. You talk about Jamar Chase, you talk about Deebo Samuel in 2021. Last year, we can go with those Cleveland Browns, Amari Cooper, Tyler Lockett, who you guys talked about earlier in the show, Devonta Smith last year. We are seeing these Christian Kirk last year. You see tons of winners from this range. Chris, who are a couple of wide receivers you like that are being drafted right now as wide receiver 3s, wide receiver 4s, and we'll give you the very bottom of the barrel wide receiver 2 as a start. I know you like Hollywood Brown. Are there any others? And tell us why you like Hollywood Brown. You've liked him for a few years, though.
I love how you know everyone he likes. It's got to be
because we draft against one another.
he might like he's like a teapot. It's a good thing he's wearing headphones because
it's so
when
funny.
you have a $25. It's a $2,500 draft. $2,500 draft. You know who your opponents are drafting.
Hey, Theo, let me ask you this.
By the time September comes, we all know who each other likes, and it's just a matter of us jumping the other person to get them. So,
but that's when if you're paying for $2,500, and you've got to be confident enough in yourself to be like, I'm gonna steal Vaccaro's guy. Like you don't do that. You've got your own guys, right? Like I guess 100%. If you converge on a couple, but all these people who are so afraid that if someone knows who I like, they're gonna steal my guy around
part
early.
Of the game.
It's all
part of the game. It's all strategy.
Yeah,
it's all part of the game. You got to mix it all in. Yeah, don't worry.
Vaccaro made us right.
Anyway.
He made us write our draft sheets in. We had to dip a toothpick in lemon water, and then hold it up to a black light during the draft so no one could see what was on our pages. It was crazy.
It's like a prison deep in the streets. You got a secret code and whatnot.
We're holding a lighter under some of our pages. Like, who is it? What is that? Is it J.K. Dobbins?
Theo, listen, back to your Hollywood Brown point before we go really off the tracks here. I've think one of the downfalls of me drafting these past years is I'm quick to throw away, wide receivers in offenses that I think are going to suck, to put it loosely. And I think that's been a mistake and a downfall of mine these past years. And when I go back in this year and look at the draft board and I see Hollywood Brown's ADP, and he's like about 75 to 80 in all these drafts. And early in the draft season, I was like, nah, I don't want him. I don't want anything to do with that Arizona offense. But you think about it, and it's like, you know what? Even these bad offenses, when you give them a clear top wide receiver one target, these guys are going to get peppered 10, 15 targets every week. And if I could put that guy in as my flex wide receiver and sneak out a 7 for 85 game every week and hopefully a touchdown, maybe that's it's not the worst, draft pick on the board. So a lot of people are down on Hollywood. A lot of people want to fade that Arizona offense this year. But for me, I think the talent and the target share will be there. And I don't think if the season starts off with Colt McCoy for the first month, maybe throwing to him, he's a solid enough veteran to get him the ball. No D-Hop there, not much behind him. I know the kid Michael Wilson's going to be on one side, Rondell Moore in the slot, and McBride at tight end. That's not good enough for me not to fade Hollywood Brown as an elite wide receiver one target where he's going off the board.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that's literally last year how people got the Amari Cooper, Tyler Lockett, and the year before Brandon Cooks. No one wanted to draft him. He was an even bigger steal.
That's the thing I was going to say. You took words right out of my mouth with Cooper and Lockett and DK. If we looked at this situation and this question last year, those were guys that we were fading because of their crap offense, crap quarterback situation. And those were 3 home run picks right there. So it's the same reasoning. I'm going back in this year and looking at the Chris Godwins, the, Marquise Hollywood Brown types. We're getting a discounted price on them in offenses that people don't want any part of.
I love that. And Nando, where are you at on right now? We're seeing the Tampa Bay big 2 wide receivers just push completely down, basically being drafted as wide receiver 3s. And Evans is falling to like the back end of the wide receiver 3. Where are you at on Godwin and Evans? We have indecision at the quarterback position, but these guys have scored a ton of fantasy points in the past. Is this a value, or are you scared about this offense?
You're talking about a Bruce Arians offense before where they had a lot of success. You're talking about like guys throwing the ball a billion times. Jameis Winston was just chucking the ball wherever. Then Tom Brady's next, not to hate on Baker Mayfield, but I think there's going to be just a difference. It's going to be like a controlled, slower offense that's not going to be as exciting. It's like, and I feel bad because I said, Geno Smith has weapons. Russell Wilson has weapons. I should be able to say Baker Mayfield has weapons. I just don't feel like there's just something in my gut that's not the same situation. That's not the same 2 things, as the same things as the other. I don't know. I can't. There's something weird about it. I'm okay with those ADPs. I can't really champion like Mike Evans. I'd rather have Michael Pittman. So like maybe it's a me thing, but I can't reconcile those 2 with Baker Mayfield and thinking of them as anything higher than 3rd, 4th rounders, really.
Think about Mike Evans' approach going into this season, his mind frame. He just came off of seasons where he was in the playoffs every year. He had the GOAT as his quarterback, competing for Super Bowls. Now he looks around. This team's on the decline. They're probably a 4 or 5 win team with a shit quarterback. It's like, what motivation is there for Mike Evans to get excited every Sunday and go out other than, I guess his own personal stats? I think Mike Evans is a candidate midseason to get traded this year. I wouldn't be shocked if he winds up on an elite team going for the playoffs that maybe needs a receiver, because he's going to be stomping his feet. And he's going to want to get out of Tampa, in my opinion. He's pushing 30. He's done his damage in Tampa. He's made his money. It's like, let's move on and finish my career off. He's the perfect candidate for that, in my opinion.
Godwin definitely is a safer pick right now because I feel like he can win low to ADOT. He's a target commander. Evans, you're asking for red zone production. You're asking for touchdowns. That could be trouble. And Nando, great call with Michael Pittman because he's also a guy kind of in this money zone. Yeah. 99 receptions last year. Chris, this is a guy who's ADP dropped so much from last year. He was being drafted as a wide receiver 1. Yeah. Now he's being drafted as wide receiver 3 after he had 99 catches. So interesting the way the world turns. Let's take it up a notch. Right now, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson are being drafted as the top 2 wide receivers by ADP, with Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs, Cooper Kupp pretty close behind them. These guys are all locks for the first round. In 2021, though, we had Cooper Kupp, who finished as the number 1 wide receiver in fantasy by a country mile. And Chris, even in a wide receiver heavy format like the NFFC, you were getting him in the 4th round, sometimes the end of the 3rd round. I remember multiple drafts I was in where guys were passing him up for Tyler Lockett, Robert Woods, his own teammate, and he just smashed. You don't need to go that deep, but if there's a wide receiver kind of coming out of nowhere here that finishes as wide receiver 1 overall in fantasy this year, that's not among like the big 5, who is it? Start with you, Nando.
Oh, so Chris has some time to look smart.
No. Wait, we'll start with Chris.
No,
I'll go
first.
I'll go
Garrett
first
Wilson.
If you guys want?
Is Garrett Wilson too high?
That was going to be my answer. You read my mind. There you go.
All right, how about Keenan Allen then? I'll take a long shot at Keenan Allen.
No, stick with Garrett Wilson.
Yes, stick with Garrett Wilson.
I didn't want to steal it from everybody else.
No, you're good. Talk about how excited you are about Garrett Wilson, Nando.
I don't know, man. You know what? I don't even believe in Aaron Rodgers. I was just trying to think of a guy who fit that mold. Like, he's an exciting guy. He's rookie of the year. He's got the talent, obviously. He's got a quarterback now. He's on a serious offense, blah, blah, blah. It just all adds up. I know a lot of people like him. I really think my real answer is Tyreek Hill. Like, is going to be number 1, like, by a country mile, I think.
That's a cop-out. He's the 4th receiver off the board, Nando.
Man, he's going to be number 1.
To the question.
I just did. And then you go, oh, my guy.
I'll say this. Nando,
please call me second, Theo.
Garrett Wilson and Tyreek Hill. Chris, who's a wide receiver 1 this year if it's not one of the very, very obvious ones?
Amon-Ra St. Brown.
That was mine.
That was mine. Okay? Was it? Yeah.
I said it last night. 100 plus receptions last year, 90 the year before. He's 23 years old, Chris.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could see either if Nando's taking Garrett Wilson, I'll say either Amon-Ra St. Brown or
DK Metcalf. Both take Garrett Wilson.
Well, that was my first answer. I gave you a second option, but Amon-Ra St. Brown, just because the lack of other targets early in the season, I think Amon-Ra could see 15 targets a game here, Theo, in Detroit, and just take it to another level here, and he can wind up with one of those 120 type reception seasons, in my opinion. I know, and I don't know if it's a little bit of a cop out. He's going, early 2nd round, but if someone's going to hit the board that's not a first rounder, it'll be Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think, as wide receiver 1.
I love it, guys. This was a lot of fun tonight. We covered an absolute lot, and you guys were very generous with your time. We're over an hour here. Nando, let everybody know where they can find you.
Well, I live in central New Jersey.
Nice.
Very funny, Nando.
Nando going out with a bang.
I'm on Twitter, but I'm honestly not a great follow. And I'm really mostly editing The Athletic now. I'm not really writing that much. So yeah, I'm evasive on purpose. You can't find me. Don't come asking questions.
Follow Nando on Twitter. I tweet
and Nando
his Twitter, so you
can't
get away from it. Can't get away.
And Chris
from
is
it.
only on Threads now. From what I understand.
Chris has just dropped Twitter.
I don't even know what that is. I keep hearing about it. I don't want to know about it, and that's that.
Chris just posts pictures of his legs on vacation on Facebook. That's all.
Yeah. Jesus.
Chris,
the Borgata and my legs.
Well, Borgata flex is a fun flex, Chris. Don't let him make fun of you of that. It's a great place to be, Nando.
It is.
I'm not. It's just funny. There's no post from Chris Vaccaro forever. Then there's like one dark video from inside the bar that goes like this, and then one from Borgata that goes like this of all the dudes in the pool.
Yeah,
trying to find scouting new bartenders.
Quad season, fellas. Chris, let everybody know where they can find you.
Chris Vaccaro, GST on Twitter. Pumping out some fantasy information and advice all summer long, and be back at The Athletic this year, writing articles, and that's it.
Threatens not to another 5 minutes, though.
That's because I don't want to work with you anymore. But if I do and I suck it up for one more season, I will. And that's it. So Nando, you run a show. You know Theo's trying to get out of the show. He's trying to exit, and you just keep talking.
We're already over, man. It was at 45 minutes. Yeah, if we were 45s, we're gonna keep it tight 45. We're at 109, dude.
No one said 45. We're a solid hour here, but I had to give an extra 10 minutes here, guys, because this was so much fun. Thanks for joining me, guys. Everybody, check out. We had a lot of great shows drop on Player Profiler this week. Definitely check out my episode of Press Coverage with Josh Larkey. That was a really good one. And check out the Dynasty Roundtable. That's one of our newer shows. They had Cody Carpenter and Maddie Kiwoom on this week. They're putting out really, really good content. And then look for us to drop a number of really fun shows next week. Press Coverage, Sonic Truth is going to be back. And stick with First Class Fantasy. Billy Muzio will be back from vacation. Thanks a lot, guys. This was a lot of fun. And everybody, enjoy your evening.
Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free. This is only possible because of you allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All In Package to continue to make all of this possible, to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.